Okay, let's get one thing straight right up front. This isn't about Elon Musk, the personality, the headlines, the controversies. Nope. We're going to do something different. We're going to deconstruct the powerful mental operating system he uses to build companies. And the amazing thing is, it's a framework that's surprisingly learnable.
I mean, think about it for a second. It's a question that just seems to defy all logic, right? How does one person manage to build companies and actually succeed in these wildly different, unbelievably complex industries? It really feels like it should be impossible.
But here's the thing. The answer isn't some kind of magic, and it's not just about being a genius either. It's really about a systematic, repeatable way of thinking. You could almost call it a mental OS. And that's what we're going to do in this explainer. We're going to pull it apart, piece by piece, so you can see how it works.
All right, so let's start building out this cognitive architecture from the ground up. We've got to begin with the absolute foundation. You see, this whole system is really built on one single powerful idea. It's a way of thinking that totally challenges how most of us operate, and honestly, it's the key that unlocks everything else.
And that big idea? It's called first principles thinking. Now, this isn't something he just made up. It's a mental model that comes straight from physics, and its whole purpose is to just slice right through the noise of how things have always been done.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, it's the discipline of taking a problem and just boiling it down and down and down until you get to its absolute fundamental truths. We're talking about the stuff that you know is true because of the laws of physics. And then and only then do you start building a solution back up from that rock-solid foundation.
So this leads us to a really important comparison. See, most of us, most of the time, we think by analogy. We look at what other people have done, and we try to make it a little bit better, right? We iterate. And that's fine, it's efficient. But it only ever leads to small, incremental changes. First principles thinking? Well, that's way harder. It means you have to ignore what came before and build something totally fundamentally new.
I know this can all feel a little abstract, a little out there, so let's make it super concrete. The story of how SpaceX got started is just the perfect case study for seeing first principles in action. So when Elon Musk first tried to buy a rocket, this was the price tag he was looking at: $65 million. Now, if you were reasoning by analogy, you'd say, okay, that's the market price. Maybe we can negotiate it down to $60 million. But that is not the question he asked.
No, instead, he asked a first principles question. He asked, what is a rocket actually made of? He literally broke it down to its most basic parts: aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. And then he just went and looked up the price of those materials on the commodity market.
And what he found was just staggering. The cost of all the raw materials was only 2% of that final $65 million price tag. So that means the other 98% wasn't some law of physics making it expensive. No, it was just inefficiency, overhead, and all these complex layers of manufacturing that had built up over decades. And that's when he knew. The conclusion was obvious. It was possible to build a rocket for a tiny fraction of the cost.
Okay, so first principles thinking is great for finding these massive hidden opportunities. But then what? How do you decide where to focus? How do you learn what you even need to know to get started? Well, this is where the toolkit comes in. A set of mental models he uses to filter and prioritize.
First up is his model for learning, which he calls the semantic tree. See, he doesn't see knowledge as just a long list of facts. He sees it like a tree. You can't just go around memorizing random details, which are like the leaves. It won't work. You have to start by deeply, truly understanding the fundamental principles. That's the trunk and the big branches. Because without that solid core, any new information you learn just has nothing to stick to.
All right, next up is this really powerful economic filter he calls, pretty bluntly, the idiot index. And it's a dead simple ratio. You take the cost of a finished part and divide it by the cost of its raw materials. A high ratio is like a giant flashing red light signaling massive inefficiency and, of course, a huge opportunity. So let's look at some examples. That early rocket we talked about, it had an idiot index of 50. A single part for the Raptor engine had an index of 65, which means it cost 65 times more than the lump of steel it was made from. This index doesn't just find problems, it points you directly to the biggest places where you can make radical cost cuts. And think about it, this isn't just for hardware. You can apply this kind of thinking anywhere you see a huge gap between the cost of the inputs and the final price. Okay, so you've got the foundation, first principles, and we've got the filters for finding opportunities. Now we need the actual blueprint for getting stuff done. And for that, Musk uses a really strict 5-step engineering algorithm for pretty much everything, from building rockets to writing software.
And I have to stress this, the order here is everything. It is absolutely critical. Step 1, make the requirements less dumb. You have to question everything. Who made this rule? Is it really necessary? Step 2, and this is maybe the most important step, try to delete the part or the process completely. Just get rid of it. Step 3, and only after you've failed at deleting it do you simplify and optimize what's left. 4, you accelerate. And then finally, as the very last step, you automate.
This quote right here really gets to the absolute heart of why this algorithm works. See, deleting before you optimize is so important because smart people, engineers, designers, you name it, they love to solve hard problems. But the biggest possible waste of talent is to perfectly engineer something that should never have existed in the first place. Step 2 is designed to stop you from ever falling into that trap.
So we've covered the what and the how of this mental operating system. But to really, truly get it, we have to look at the why. What is the deep philosophical belief that's driving this entire machine?
This right here, this is the core belief. He views human consciousness as this tiny, fragile, precious little candle flickering in an impossibly vast darkness. And this isn't just some poetic idea for him. It's literally the prime directive for his life's work.
And, when you look at it through that lens, all of his companies suddenly snap into focus. They make sense as part of one single mission. SpaceX, that's the backup plan, right? To protect that little candle from getting snuffed out on one planet. Neuralink is all about increasing the candle's brightness by merging with AI. Tesla is working on an economy of abundance, which would free up humanity to focus on these bigger things. And XAI is about using AI to understand the very nature of the universe itself. It's all connected. It's all about expanding the scope and the scale of consciousness.
This quote from Douglas Adams, one of his favorite authors, just perfectly wraps up the entire system. Whether it's first principles or the 5-step algorithm, the goal is always to strip away all the noise and ask the most fundamental, the most important questions.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. This whole system, it isn't just about building rockets or cars. It's a universal toolkit for solving really, really hard problems. So the real question for you is, what's that seemingly impossible challenge in your world, whether it's big or small, that you would take on if you started from first principles?